October 1962. The world was closer to total destruction than anyone alive could imagine. For 13 days, humanity's fate hung by the thinnest thread, and the decisions of a few men in distant offices could have determined whether billions would live or die. This is History Veil, and today we are diving into the 13 days that brought the planet to the brink of nuclear annihilation, a period of tension so high that even a single misstep could have ended history itself. What you are about to hear may feel like a thriller from fiction, but every word is fact. This was real, and it happened right on our doorstep during what is now known as the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Cold War had turned the globe into a silent battlefield. The United States and the Soviet Union had divided the world into two camps: democracy and communism, Cap and socialism, East and West. Nuclear weapons had been tested for years, but they had always seemed distant threats, abstract, almost theoretical. Then came the photographs, the aerial spy images taken over Cuba, revealing missile sites being constructed in secret. The missiles were not ordinary. Each one could strike entire cities within minutes, destroying millions of lives instantly. The United States suddenly realized that the abstract had become terrifyingly real. For the first time, nuclear war was not a distant possibility. It was a clear, present danger, and it was within striking distance. President John F. Kennedy faced the weight of the world on his shoulders. Every advisor, every general, every intelligence officer knew that one miscalculation could set off a chain reaction that would leave the globe unrecognizable. Some urged immediate military action, advocating for an invasion of Cuba, a surgical strike to destroy the missile sites, and a clear show of American strength. Others warned that any military strike could escalate into full-scale nuclear war, annihilating millions in both the United States and the Soviet Union. The room was tense. Every conversation, every recommendation, every glance carried the weight of human survival. Decisions could not be delayed, but rushing could be fatal. Meanwhile, Soviet ships carrying more nuclear weapons steamed toward the American naval blockade. Each ship represented a potential trigger for catastrophe. If it had come to a clash, the world would have entered a conflict unlike anything in history. On the surface, life continued as normal. Children went to school, workers went to their jobs, and families slept peacefully, completely unaware that the world was teetering on the edge of annihilation. But behind closed doors, in command rooms and embassies, a global drama was unfolding with consequences too enormous to fully comprehend. For 13 days, messages, telegrams, and secret communications moved back and forth between Washington and Moscow. Each letter, each coded transmission could determine whether humanity survived. In a Soviet submarine submerged deep beneath the Atlantic, officers debated whether to launch a nuclear torpedo without orders from Moscow. If the captain had acted impulsively, there would have been no time to reverse the consequences. The world would have been thrown into chaos, fire, and devastation. Meanwhile, in the United States, Kennedy and his advisors watched the situation with a combination of anxiety and resolve. They understood that the survival of billions depended on their ability to remain calm, strategic, and patient. Inside the command centers, tension was almost unbearable. Maps were spread across tables, red zones marking missile ranges, and each red dot representing the potential death of millions. Military officers calculated possibilities, weighed the odds, and tried to anticipate the enemy's moves. Diplomats worked feverishly behind the scenes, sending letters and negotiating terms that could mean life or death. Each day passed, with the world holding its collective breath. One wrong decision, one miscommunication, and the first nuclear strike could have been launched. This was not a hypothetical scenario. It was reality. For those 13 days, the world existed in a state of suspended terror. Leaders on both sides realized that restraint was not weakness, but survival. Negotiation, communication, and careful strategy were now weapons more powerful than any bomb. The United States chose a naval blockade, a measure designed to prevent additional missiles from reaching Cuba. The Soviets, seeing the resolve of the Americans, were forced into negotiation. Slowly, cautiously, the superpowers began to navigate the fine line between power and destruction. In Cuba, missiles still stood ready, hidden beneath dense forests, waiting for launch codes that might never come. History Veil brings you closer to the tension that gripped those days. Citizens went about their lives, oblivious to the imminent threat, while the men in power held the fate of humanity in their hands. The world watched in ignorance as the invisible clock counted down, second by second. In the submarine B-59, an officer made the fateful decision to hold back, a choice that prevented the launch of a nuclear torpedo and may have saved billions of lives. Elsewhere, back-channel negotiations and secret agreements between Kennedy and Khrushchev gradually reduced the tension. Diplomacy, reason, and perhaps a measure of luck allowed humanity to survive a disaster that could have wiped out entire continents. Finally, the crisis ended. The Soviets agreed to withdraw the missiles from Cuba. The United States promised not to invade the island, and in secret, missiles were removed from Turkey. The world exhaled collectively, even though most people had no idea how close they had come to extinction. The Cuban Missile Crisis left a permanent mark on history. It showed that nuclear war was not an abstract threat, but a very real possibility, that even the most powerful nations could bring the world to the edge in a matter of days, and that restraint, patience, and diplomacy were not optional, they were essential for survival. As the dust settled, leaders on both sides understood that power could be terrifyingly fragile, and that the line between life and extinction was thinner than anyone could imagine. For 13 days, humanity had survived on a razor's edge, and for 13 days, every person on the planet had been living under a silent, invisible threat. The world continued, but the lessons of those days would echo forever. We must remember that decisions made in moments of crisis can shape the fate of billions, and that even in an age of unimaginable destructive power, human choices determine whether civilization thrives or perishes. History Veil reminds us of one terrifying truth. The world can change, or even end, in an instant, and it often comes down to the choices of a few. 13 days of tension, 13 days of negotiations, 13 days where humanity's survival hung in balance. The Cuban Missile Crisis was not just a political standoff. It was a wake-up call, a glimpse into how fragile life truly is when nuclear weapons exist. It was a moment when history itself paused, when the entire planet existed in fear, and yet, through restraint, negotiation, and courage, it continued. Imagine if even a single decision had gone wrong. Imagine the devastation, the loss, the cities reduced to rubble, and the millions of lives erased. For 13 days, it was all possible, but it didn't happen. Humanity survived. The lessons remain. Power is fragile. Diplomacy is priceless. And the thin line between survival and annihilation can be crossed in the blink of an eye. This is History Veil, and today we have uncovered one of the most terrifying moments in modern history. If you want to understand the events that shaped our world, make sure to subscribe and join us for more deep dives into the stories that changed everything. The Cuban Missile Crisis may have ended, but the lessons it taught remain urgent and necessary. The story of those 13 days is a reminder that history is not just about dates and events. It is about choices, about decisions that echo through time, and about the fragile balance that keeps humanity alive. As we reflect on those tense days, we can see the importance of leadership, the power of diplomacy, and the weight of responsibility that comes with the control of unimaginable weapons. The world survived, but it was a close call, a reminder of just how fragile our existence can be. Remember, History Veil will continue bringing you the untold stories of history, moments where the fate of millions hung in balance, and events that shaped the course of civilization. Today, you witnessed the 13 days that could have ended everything. Tomorrow, there may be another story, equally shocking, equally important, and equally dramatic. Make sure to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and join History Veil as we continue exploring the most incredible, terrifying, and fascinating moments in human history.